Alright guys, OCD for EDC here, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. This is going to be kind of a how-to video, if you will. So, most of you I'm sure are familiar with the Kaiser Sheepdog XL, and I chose this knife just because of its size and because it needs, well, actually let me show you what we're going to be doing here. So this knife does not have a detent ball ramp. And so as you can see here, once you break the lock and then you kind of hit that wall where the end of the blade tang has to jump up onto the detent ball. And this knife, since I got it, as you can see, it's not wearing a pocket clip. That's because my wife has commandeered this knife from me and she's been using it in the kitchen. So this is one of her complaints about the knife. She doesn't understand why it's not just smooth once you break the lock. And so I told her I could fix that. And so that's what we're going to do here today. So, if I get the right size tools here. So hopefully this video is not too long, and hopefully nobody says anything to my wife, because I'm actually doing this in the house. I figured my shop was going to be too noisy, and so I'm actually going to use a Dremel to do this. And it's just a old shitty Dremel that I've had for years and years. I actually think I bought this thing when I was like, God, I don't even know, 17, 18 years old. And it's seen an insane amount of use. I actually have been into racing most all my life, and so I've actually ported many cylinder heads with this Dremel setup. So anyway, for those that have never seen a Kaiser Sheepdog XL apart, this is what you're working with here. So you do have some liners that have been skeletonized. The liners are extremely nice, really well done. You know, edges and stuff are really fantastic. And then there's a little bearing pocket there. And you've got multi-row ceramic bearings. They're actually white ceramic. It's kind of interesting. Most of the time you see black balls on these knives. But anyway, here's the other side liner. So let's get that bearing out of there. So we're going to set all this stuff off to the side so we don't get it full of shit. And clean this guy up just a little bit. Had some oil on there. Alright, so you can see here the detent ball track. And you can see, I don't know how well it'll show up on camera, but where the detent ball, yeah, you can see it's kind of rounded the edge off right there. So this was just a square edge on the blade tang. And so what we're going to be doing, if it'll show up on the, yeah, there you go. So for those that don't know, right inside there, right there, that is a detent ball ramp. And that's a 2-sun knife. And this one here, here's another 2-sun knife. So you can see right there is the detent ball ramp. You know, these are nice features that you get with manufacturers that actually give a shit about their product. You know, is it mandatory? No. But does it make the knife action much nicer? Absolutely. So that's what we're going to be doing here. And the tool that I'm going to use to do this, I'll show you real quick, is I've got a flex shaft on my Dremel, and I've got a cutoff wheel right here, and hopefully without banging things around, this is my Dremel, and like I said, this thing has been, God, I can't even imagine how many hundreds of hours I've got on this guy. So hopefully it's not going to be too noisy. We'll see what happens here once I fire this guy up. But that is the goal here, is to show that off. So I'm just going to set this towel down just to kind of help hold the blade here. And so I'm going to start with this cutoff wheel to cut my little groove, which will only take a few seconds, or should. And then we'll polish it up using a few other items. So hopefully that's not too noisy. So I'm just cutting a nice little groove right on the detent ball line. And you don't have to go very deep. It's, you know, the ball doesn't stick down terribly far, so we're only talking about, I don't know, maybe 30 thousandths or so. Take a look at that. So you can see there, I just made a little cut that kind of goes from nothing down to, actually I probably need to go just slightly deeper than that. But that's, so far it's turning out pretty good. I'll kick this back on for a second. All right, that's kind of what we're looking for right there. So as you can see, I just made a small cut right there. And so now what we're going to do is, I've got a quick change here on my Dremel, and we're going to change it over. This is like a 3M Scotch-Brite kind of a pad. And let's hit this with this guy real quick. So you want to kind of get the edge of it down in that track. You're wanting to try to polish that track. All right. So now you can see that I've kind of polished that track. Sorry, my dogs are barking here. I'm not sure what's going on. But anyway, now I'm actually going to change the tool and go to a polishing tool that actually has a little bit of compound on it. And tighten that up a little bit here. All right. Alright, so now that we got the polishing done, now depending on, and I may need to come back and clean this up just a little bit more, but in the interest of trying to keep this video down to a reasonable time frame, let me wipe this off here. Alright, so you can see what we got here, and there's some more polishing compound there on the end. All right, so you can see there we've got our Detent Ball Ramp. So, pretty simple. And of course, you can be a little more precise about this. On this knife, I don't really care so much. I could use smaller tools to really get into that groove well. But I can also come back with some Scotch-Brite and make it match the vertical grind lines. But let's go ahead and make sure I'm clean here. Let's go ahead and throw this guy back together really quick. All right. And then I'm going to put a little bit of KPL on here. Oop. Little piece of fuzz or something on there. Anyway, throw a little bit of KPL on this bearing here. And actually, I forgot to do this. I'm going to throw a little bit of KPL heavy on the detent ball track. Sometimes you got to kind of shake this stuff down. It's pretty thick. But I'm just going to throw a little bit in the, I'm not even on camera here, detent ball hole, if I can get it to come out. There we go. Alright, so now let's go back together here. Throw this other scale on. Now this thing does have a D-shaped pivot, so it does have an area that it has to line up with, a flattened area on this particular scale, or liner I should say. And then yeah, you do also have these anodized pivot collars that come on the knife. So, and then guys, this thing does have a T10 for the detent, or I'm sorry, for the detent, Jesus, it's been a long day. It's a T10 for the pivot screw, and T8 for the 3 body screws. And I always like to see larger hardware. A lot of knives use T6, and that just gets old. T6s are just kind of fragile and can strip easily. Yeah, I always like it when knives have good hardware. Again, it's it's kind of like a detent ball ramp. It just is a mark of somebody who actually gives a shit about the product that they're building. So, yeah, hopefully we've improved this guy a little bit and made Mama happy. And, it's kind of funny. When my wife first saw this knife, she thought it was insane because of how big it is. And it definitely is a big guy, no doubt about it. But then she used it in the kitchen. And then she stole it. So, anyway, let's tighten that up just a little bit. I had a tiny bit of blade play. Alright. Actually, I might be a little bit tight now. This knife has pretty good action on it. And it'll be even better once that detent ball wears a little track in the groove I just made. But now, as once I break the lock, so right here, I got the lock broken, and now we're starting to hit that detent ball ramp, and it's nowhere near. I mean, you can still feel it when it comes up on the ball, but it's just barely there. And it'll get better with time. And like I said, I may have to go back in there and touch this up a little bit. I wanted to kind of speed this up just for the interest of not making a hour-long video. But yeah, action is really good. And like I said, it will definitely get better over time. And when you do the detent ball ramp, it just makes things a lot smoother. You don't end up with a double stop kind of a situation. I think, some people refer to it as double clutching or whatever, but there's, you've already released the lock once, and then you hit the second wall, and depending on the lock bar tension, it could be fairly significant. It could require quite a bit of force to jump over that second wall. And yeah, so because, it's not a huge deal, does it make all the difference in the world? No, not exactly. But because my wife is using this knife, it's just something that she brought up and she wasn't a big fan of. So I told her I would fix it for her. So, trying to be the good husband that I am. So anyway, guys, don't let her know that I did this in the house. But yeah, so hopefully maybe somebody learned something. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but maybe I'm, teach somebody something. So anyway, guys, thanks a lot. That's what I had for your face balls today. Kaiser, XL, Sheepdog, and how to do a detent ball ramp. Thanks. Have a good one.